Yeah, so I'm an Irish expat living here in Medjugorje. Um, I left the UK. I was living in the UK for 17 years, and I left the UK to arrive in Medjugorje in August 2025. In August, in October 2024, something very significant happened to me here when I was visiting here in Medjugorje. I came in October 2024. In fact, I came twice. The first time I came to Medjugorje, I came with a group, which was wonderful. But I had a deep feeling to come over on my own a few weeks later, so I did. And I felt led by Our Lady to just say rosaries in front of that beautiful statue that famous statue that everybody knows, in front of the Church of St. James's. So I was saying the rosary quite loud one day, and it was in the afternoon. It was very sunny. I remember that, even though it was October. But I remember it started off, a miracle happened. Um, so just basically, this little girl came over, a little girl, and I didn't know who she was. I never met her before. She's about 6, but she seemed to be fascinated by what I was doing because I always carry the cross in my hand. The Holy Spirit has led me to keep the cross in my hand at all times, so I do that. So I had the cross in my hand as I was saying loud rosary. And the little girl kept coming over. She had young parents in the 30s, I'd say, and but she kept leaving them to come over to me, and she was trying to give me some money, and I don't know, because they looked quite dramatic what I was doing, saying the loud rosary, and but she kept smiling. But there was something unusual about the way she was coming over to me. She was drawn to come over. It felt like she was drawn, and but then I noticed at the side of my eye there was a woman looking at me. Um, and as I was progressing through the decades of the rosary, I noticed on the left hand side, the parents of that little girl were walking away, and I was getting concerned about the little girl. And suddenly, the lady popped up and said, "Grace." She called her Grace, and she took Grace by the hand. She said, "Don't worry, I know her, and I know her parents. I'll take her over to her parents." So she took her over to her parents, and then the lady sat down beside me. Now, I did not know who this lady was, and she was Irish. And but immediately she started talking to me about my life in some way, shape. There were some things that she said that were fascinating. Um, but the main thing was she talked about, because she was talking to me, she was watching me because I'll tell you about myself. The healing that I had was of a mental health condition. I have ADHD, and I had complex PTSD from a lot of trauma in my life. So the way I presented to people was I was very hyper. My speech was erratic. I was switching subjects. I couldn't concentrate for long periods. So I was on significantly strong drugs, methylphenidate, uh, for years, and to try and control that. Um, but ADHD on its own is okay, but it's when it's compounded with trauma, it really, everything gets exacerbated. So the way I presented, people often didn't take me seriously. Even though I have an academic background, sometimes that was unfortunately the case, which was a cross I had to carry. But the lady, as she was talking to me, I guess she saw that in me, and she said, "Look," I know of a place where you can get healing for mental health conditions." She said, "And I have some of the water here. It's called the Divine Mercy Shrine." And she said, "This water," she said, "heals mental health conditions." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes." Now, she said some other things that were kind of miraculous that she couldn't have known. And I won't I won't convey them. This is about the Divine Mercy Shrine. So, in my heart, I was very excited because I knew something very significant was happening. Because a lady was doing something very dynamic here with that little girl called Grace. You know, a lady has many graces that she wants to pour out to people. And that little girl, something profound was, my spirit knew that something miraculous was occurring as that lady was talking to me. And I could feel palpitations in my heart. And I was wondering, is this gospel? Or is this a woman who's encouraged by gospel to talk to me? It was either one, because regardless, it's gospel. So she said, you know, you don't need much of this water, she said. You just need a couple of drops into a bottle of water, she said. And then she said, just put a few drops of this water into a bottle of water and then keep adding to that water and you'll have a limited supply. But she said, it's from the Divine Mercy Shrine. Now, she said, nobody really knows that water is healing, that the water heals mental health conditions. But it does, she said. Now, I had never heard of anyone being healed from that shrine, from which is where we
This
are now,
shrine.
from this shrine, which is near the Blue Cross here in Medjugorje. So I was fascinated because I hadn't visited the shrine at that stage. I'd passed it, but I hadn't really visited it because I'd been to the Blue Cross. So she advised me then to keep drinking that water over the next few days. So I had about 4 days left in Medjugorje before I went back to the UK. And so I did exactly what she advised. And then she left, and I was amazed. And she put a few drops of that water. Now, the fact that she knew as well that information, just add a few drops into the water as well. You don't need a whole bottle of water. That was interesting in itself as well. So over the next few days, I made sure that I was drinking from that water throughout the day, every day, until I came back to the UK. Now, I have a spiritual director as well, who I was engaging with about this. And she's in America, and Vicky Lee Smith is her name. And I hope she doesn't mind me using her name. I'm sure she'd be happy about that. But anyway, Vicky, I was in Split Airport, and I said to Vicky, I feel quite calm, unusually calm. And she said, Catriona, you've been healed. You've had an accelerated healing. She said, I can tell. Because I hadn't really spoken to too many people over the past few days since I met that lady, because I was very much on my own. And so I didn't really get a chance to sort of get a sense of, but I know I did feel a lot calmer. I did notice that. And when she said that to me, I was amazed. She said, Katrina, you've had an accelerated healing. That affliction that you had, she said, is gone. And you know what? As the days wore on, when I went back to the UK, I realised I was completely different. Now, what was funny was, about that time, a week before, the interim week really, between the first time I went to Medjugorje in October to the last week I travelled to Medjugorje, I had a strong feeling to drop my drugs, to not take my drugs with me. So I left the methylphenidate back in the UK. And so yes, I basically I never touched those drugs again. So and as time went on, I still wasn't sure, because I couldn't believe this, because this was something that was with me all my life. And but I noticed then when I was teaching, because I'm an academic, I teach universities, various different universities. I was when I was delivering workshops, normally I would need the methylphenidate to stay calm, to be coherent, that kind of thing. I noticed I was calm throughout my teaching workshops, throughout the whole duration, without any need for medication. And as the days and weeks turned into months, I realised I truly had been healed. I was a different person. My parish priest noticed it. Everybody noticed it. So my parish priest then was very supportive of me. He said, right, Catriona, go back to your psychiatrist, because he knew that I stopped taking the drugs. So I went back to the psychiatrist, and he was in shock when he saw me. because he could see that I was very calm, that I didn't have that, um, I don't know what you call it, but he saw that I wasn't, that hyperactivity was gone, that I was very calm, I was very clear and coherent in my thinking and in what I was saying, and he closed my case. So then I'm going to skip now to me to the period that I'm after August 2025. I moved to Medjugorje in August 2025, and I was kind of on my own journey, spiritual journey, and then a miracle happened one day. I was in a situation that I met somebody who was very ill and who was looking for possible palliative care in Medjugorje. And so I decided to do some investigations. And I came across this website, and I thought it was run by a local person here in Medjugorje. I thought that there were plans to, because I think it was called the Seven Sorrows uh, Palliative Care Centre. It was basically a beautiful website, but with plans to fundraise for this palliative care centre. So I emailed this person thinking it was somebody in Croatia. And I was even thinking at the time, I hope the person who receives this email can speak English. That's what I thought to myself. So the next day, um, this is a miracle. The next day, I got this phone call from America. And this lovely man called Eugene came on the phone. And and he very kindly offered to help this lady, amazing, wonderful individual. And then he just said, "Yeah, I'm the man who funded the Divine Mercy Shrine, personally. He set up this. He built it, drilled for the water, the whole thing." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah." And then I told him my story, and Eugene got a shock. Eugene said, "Catriona, there is no reported case of an actual healing. There's no reported case. Nobody knows that water is for to is heals. Nobody knows anything about that water in relation to healing mental health conditions." And he said that was gospel, and I said it was gospel. And now another miracle has happened, that myself and the man who, set up this whole shrine, were in contact. I mean, that was incredible. That was impossible, really. And so we've been in contact ever since. But I just want to say, with all my heart, and I know people will say, well, yeah, mental health conditions, maybe over a period of time it would have healed. No, what I had was a lifelong condition that was, as I said, it was ADHD combined with, that was compounded with the difficulties associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, a complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is even worse than post-traumatic stress disorder, and which the World Health Organization has recently authenticated complex PTSD as being a real condition. So so basically, I have this peace, this calmness that I've never had in my life. I can engage people in a way that I've never been able to before, in a positive, calm way. And I am very grateful to God for this miracle. And as I said, what I was going to say there is, if I had if I was to think about what would be the sort of physical equivalent if I had a physical disability to what I had, I don't know. I think if I had some, I don't know, say if I had polio or something, I'm not sure, but if I had a long term, it would be the equivalent of having some sort of a long term physical disability. And it was completely healed. And now, the one aspect of ADHD I do have retained, which I'm delighted about, because ADHD is actually a gift from God in many ways, which is the fast brain, and that I'm very happy that that is still there. But all the rest of it is gone. I had paranoia about people. I had so much, I had many issues in relation to trusting others, all healed because of gospel, because of Jesus, because of the kindness, the mercy of Christ in my life. So that I have now fully surrendered myself to Jesus. And I am very grateful to him, to Our Lady, for this miracle. And the point of doing this very important. I thank Egle, Dr. Egle, for for doing this amazing video. Is to really promote the fact that that water is healing. And I have another story for you. Wait till you hear this. It was early March. It was March, because the taps at that stage, they switch off the taps, the public taps everywhere in front of the church, and here as well at the Divine Mercy Shrine. So it was early March that the taps were working again. So I was excited to get more of that water. So I came in early March and I was so excited to get to the taps. I ran to the taps and I forgot to say hi to Jesus. You know, I spend a lot, don't get me wrong, I spend a lot of time in prayer every day, but just that I was just, in that moment, I just ran to the taps. But you know what happened? I told Eugene this. Suddenly the water stopped pouring out. It just stopped. And I felt on my heart very strongly, Catriona, have you said hello to me? And I said, Jesus, I'm so sorry, I haven't. No, and I went on my hands and knees and I said, Jesus, I love you, I'm so sorry. And I said some prayers. Then I went back to the water and it was walking, and the water was flowing naturally again. So he was really gave me a beautiful correction there about making sure when I come in here, always say hello to him first, and in reverence and all of that. But yeah, that water is miraculous. That water is there for healing mental health issues. And I would encourage you to, as that miraculous lady, that miraculous event that happened the year before, in 2024, when I met that lady, whether it was gospel or a lady that gospel sent, regardless, it was gospel. And it was a beautiful grace that I was given of that healing. And it was personified in that young girl, by the way, as well. Because Our Lady was telling me, I'm about to give you a grace. And that young girl was trying to give me coins. See, Our Lady was in charge of every moment of that miraculous event. And truly, it was a miraculous event. But that lady said to me, she gave me such detail about it. She didn't just say, go and fill up your bottle with water. No. She said, oh, you only need a few drops and you could put that into your water and then just keep refilling it. Light doesn't dilute the light of God. And so, yeah. And that's, and I've tried to share the story with people when they come here. It's taken me a while to get around to doing this video, but now I'm doing it. I'm very grateful to Eugene for encouraging me, for Dr. Egle for encouraging me, and for Vicky Lee Smith for encouraging me as well, to do it. And above all, to Jesus, God our Father, the Holy Spirit, and Our Lady, for the encouragement as well. But truly, that water is miraculous. And I would, as I said, you don't need to fill in whole bottles to bring back to wherever you're coming from to visit Medjugorje. You only need, if you have one drinking bottle, and then just, pass it out to your friends, and then they can have an endless supply as long as they keep refilling it. That's what that lady told me. And that's significant information. I don't know how she would know that. Everything she told me is extraordinary, and everything she said was absolutely accurate as well. It was miraculous, profound information that came from gospel. As I said, regardless of that, whether that was actually gospel in human form or a lady sent by gospel, but it was gospel, and the little girl was gospel. So anyway, that's my story. I would encourage everyone to come to the Divine Mercy Shrine.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
God bless you.